Hi, this is Coralla at CorallaFicklin.com. Welcome, WYLCONE Network.com, iStudyGuides.com, or ASKPLAIN.com. And we're here once again talking about pronunciation. In this area of pronunciation, we're going to talk about minimum pairs. Now, minimum pairs can be tricky, especially they can be tricky. I was going to say especially in American English, but that's not true. They're tricky in British English and Australian English or South African English. Excuse me. They're tricky. And especially you're coming from one language to another where the vowel in your language, let's say you're coming from a different language other than English, is pronounced almost like the vowel in English, but not quite, or that vowel is hard to pronounce, so you pronounce another vowel and it can be tricky. But let's look at what minimum pairs are. And let's contrast them to homophones, not homographs so much. Homophones, or some people might call them homonyms. But homophones are words that are written differently but pronounced exactly the same. An example would be bear and bear. Bear, B-A-R-E, without covering, nude. Or bear, B-E-A-R, which is an animal. Or you can bear witness. You can be a witness to. That's using bear in a different way with a different definition, because B-E-A-R is not always an animal. It also has other meanings. You can also use to. I'm going to the movies. I talk to my mother. Or I would love to speak more than 2 languages, 2 being the number 2. Or I want to go to, or he can come to. Also, one is spelled T-O, I want to go to the movies. I speak more than 2 languages, or I would like to speak more than 2 languages, T-W-O, or also T-O-O. Those are homophones. The pronunciation isn't a problem. The problem is the spelling. When do you spell one versus the other? Because if you want to say, I speak more than 2 languages, and you write T-O, although maybe it's obvious to someone who doesn't speak English, well, then they know what I mean. They know I mean 2. It can make the sentence, if you're writing it, incomprehensible. So, those are homophones. Minimum pairs are words that are almost pronounced exactly the same. Or should I say almost pronounced the same? Because if exactly the same, it's the same. So that are almost pronounced the same, but they aren't. Now, in English, there are minimum pairs words that English speakers have problems with, or letters English speakers have problems with in distinguishing. An example would be the F and the V. And if you go back in English, in the history of the language, you'll see excuse me, that at one time those 2 letters were pronounced the same. Okay. But an English speaker might have problems with the F and the V, where a Spanish speaker wouldn't. But they would have problems in distinguishing the B and the V. So when you say minimum pairs, if you're talking about English speakers, they're minimum pairs. But they're also minimum pairs for people who are coming from another language that I also take in consideration, especially Spanish speakers and some like Japanese speakers, the difference between the L, la, and the R, or the French speaker, the difference between the S and the Z. And also for Spanish speakers, the difference between the long E and the short I. Because when you're talking about minimum pairs, you're not just talking about vowels or talking about consonants, you're talking about both. And you're also talking about diphthongs, that is, letter blends, like the difference between the CH and the SH. Now what I'm going to do, but probably in the next video, I'm going to give you a list of letters that consonants, first vowels, then consonants, that can be confusing to English as well as sometimes Spanish speaker. But let me just give you a few examples. And this is sort of, well, it can be funny, especially if you're not at the other end of the joke. Okay, because if you're going into another language and someone laughs, it can sometimes be hurtful, but in a way that not laughing at you, but laughing with you. The difference between the short I and the long E. You have the word S-H-E-E-T, and then you have the vulgar term S-H-I-T. Especially for some Spanish speakers, some speakers of Italian, Portuguese, not so much French, no. Sometimes some people have difficulty in distinguishing between those sounds. So the person might say, do you have a sheet? That's the correct way of saying it, sheet. Sheet. That's what they're trying to say, but in reality what they're saying is, do you have a shit? Which is something entirely different. Or I'm looking for a sheet versus I'm looking for a shit. Because one is the long E sound, E, and the other is the short I sound, it, shit, it. But let me use another word as an example. Fit. Do your clothes fit versus feet. I hurt my feet. One is the long E and the other is the short I. And you have to be careful. For example, when you have the word beach and then you have the word it, bitch. Now, a beach is not a bitch. And there was even a joke, because English speakers, they do play with minimum pairs. One time, I remember when I was living in California, well, I'm still living in California, but in San Diego, I remember seeing this poster that says, life is a beach. But everyone knew what they were really saying was that life is a bitch. Okay, so you can see that you have to be careful, especially Spanish speakers or people who speak a Latin-based language such as Italian, Portuguese, Spanish. Not, like I said, not so much French. And understanding the difference between the long E, and the short I. So, when I come back, in the next video, I'm going to give you a list of all the different minimum pairs that we have in English. There's quite a list. So you have a piece of paper there, and a paper and pen will look at it. So this is Coralla Ficklin at CorallaFicklin.com, WelcomeNetwork.com, iStudyGuides.com, and Explain, ASKPLAIN.com. Thank you.